So, of course, we were rookies in the long form content, and we did this 5 days with these people from different places and different problems. And I went into it thinking the story is created by the days that we're about to do.
Only to then arrive at a point thinking, okay, now how do we actually extract that story that's in here for your current group of TRT members? They have a lot of knowledge already that you can build on. People are saying it's transformational, it's empowering to see them do this. It's authentic. It's all the stuff we put in there.
Yeah.
So guys, I just wanted to interrupt for a moment to tell you about an amazing device we use here for the management and treatment of our horses and many other horses that come to the TRT stables. The Hoffmag K8 is an electromagnetic therapy machine. It is a therapy for the treatment of bones, joint and soft tissue, which of course includes the muscles, really important for us. It's the next generation and leading machine in electromagnetic therapy. It works for a large range of treatments. It is accelerated healing by stimulating cells to kickstart the healing process. I use it on myself and of course all of my horses. If you want to find out more, go to hoffmag.com/TRT. Say it again, hoffmag.com/TRT. Now let's get back to the episode.
Welcome back to TRT The Podcast. Today we have a very interesting guest, guys. A successful independent Dutch filmmaker with a strong background in education and philosophy, a successful documentary filmmaker with a focus on social issue, with successful documentaries such as Monumental Crossroads, airing in both Europe and the United States, an educator giving lectures and presentations around the world on philosophy and filmmaking. He has worked closely with legendary German filmmaker Werner Herzog, but yet his most recent and what will become his greatest claim to fame is his role of post-production director of the recently released and highly successful series Camp TRT. Tim Vandenhoff, welcome to the podcast.
It's quite the introduction.
Yeah. Of course, the last bit is yet to be seen, but I'm sure we've worked hard on getting it there.
Yeah, and it's a good start.
Yes.
Good viewer numbers. I love the reactions so far.
Yeah.
So.
But we'll get into that a little bit later. But I thought just to start out, to give people a little bit of framework, a little bit of a background. So a successful filmmaker, but rejected from film school.
True.
So my research says, but then studied philosophy. But before that, started out as a very entrepreneurial guy, a very successful internet business. How does that go in chronological order to bring you to the successful filmmaker?
Well, first off, I always wanted to be in filmmaking, or so I thought, at least. I enjoyed watching movies as a kid and always thought, once I grow up, I want to do something with this. Then came the internet. And when I was in high school, so in the mid-90s, and there was this worldwide web design contest called ThinkQuest for high school students to create educational websites, collaborating with international teams. And this was back in the day where you had ICQ, even before Messenger. You couldn't even send images or do voice
Could play
video
Snake
calls
on the Nokia.
Yeah, that's not even there yet, right?
Right.
The mobile phone is sort of the successful businessman might have the first clunky one in their car, but that's it. So the really early days, and it was really fascinating. And I got involved in that, and I had a bit of a knack for it. And so I participated 2 times, and in 1999, me and my team, we won the world championship. So we were flown out.
In web design?
Yeah.
Okay.
And honestly, I had 2 brilliant teammates from the US and India. They both went to study at MIT at age 17, I guess. So I was the Dutch appendix doing the video related bits. It was a team effort at the end of the day. And at that time, the dot-com bubble was at its peak, and we were flown to Hollywood for a week-long festivities with other finalists, spending the week in Hollywood at Universal Studios with the actual Oscar winners handing out the trophies and scholarships that we all won.
Big deal.
Yeah, it would cost millions, just the event itself. So this was a very crazy time where everybody was sort of following these young guys, kids who allegedly, supposedly knew how this internet thing worked. And so when I came back home, I thought this beats filling stocks at the grocery store. So I'm going to start my own web design business. And, well, people got word of that. And so I became one of those whiz kids. And within a few months, I had 15 people working in my company in Rotterdam while I was still in high school. And with ING backing the company and, getting €250,000 euros without a business plan whatsoever, like, okay, show us what you can do. And, it was just crazy times.
Yeah.
And then the bubble burst, and I got bankrupt at the age of 20. So in a very short, order, I became a world champion in web design, a paper internet millionaire as a 19-year-old whiz kid, and then personally bankrupt at 20. Well, then I felt I needed to take a break and make sense of this all, and I studied philosophy. That's how it sort of
How do you go from there? That's a pretty, at that age, to go from that transition to entering into this world, highly successful, having a business, having personnel, and having big banks just throwing cash at you to see what you can do. And then where did the philosophy thing come out of that?
Well, that's also something that was already there. That's part of my upbringing. My parents really encouraged me to think, the why question about everything that I saw and encountered. And so I was always very inquisitive, and so that's always been there at some in some way. And I guess the experiences in the business realm, it was living in the fast lane for a very short amount of time, but with really weird things. I've been advisor to the Queen of the Netherlands when it comes to matters of IT, advisor, like on a sort of a panel. Spent the day with her talking about the latest developments together with the board members of KPN and Ericsson. And I felt out of place a lot of the time, right? You can imagine. And it was something happening to you mostly. And sort of, how do you say, sort of finding the balance there, or sort of understanding what your actual role was there and how much sort of you just encountered things, sort of did open up that philosophical pathway too. And as you already stated, I flunked my film school application, though I must say it was not completely a miss. I was put on the waiting list. So, but then I thought, let me go study philosophy for a year and then I'll just do it again. But I enjoyed studying philosophy a lot. So I didn't look back to film school. And as a matter of fact, while doing my bachelor's, I started working for the national broadcaster VPRO. So I did get my sort of foot in the water, if you will, and started learning on the job. And so that's how I eventually ended up coming to the film industry.
Yeah, it's interesting. I sort of had a bit the same thing in my education. I was wanting to go to a very prestigious photography university, and also was not accepted. Of course, huge applications and very minimal, and people that had already big portfolios or had parents or had been put in a place where they had a lot of experience and could already show a large portfolio of professional things, which I didn't have coming out of school, and then also put on a waiting list. And they give you sort of some dates and some guidance to how you can build to get a better opportunity the next time. And in that time, I thought, I go to art school. So I did a visual arts degree and then took up the photography as the visual arts degree. And then I used my visual arts degree to sort of analyze my passion in horses. So that got me thinking more outside of being a horse trainer and technical aspect, but what does it mean? What does it mean to the horse? How is my interaction? So that's an interesting sort of, I understand completely where you are there in that. And of course, my influences, a lot of my family were in art. My grandfather was buying horses and talked about being a horse whisperer. So those early things kind of can guide you really easily. What was it particularly about filmmaking that really, what were the influences that maybe got you interested in that to begin with?
Well,
were you an avid movie watcher?
Yeah. And, I also love good food, right?
Yeah.
But there's something, it's not the same thing if you like eating and being a good chef, right? Or even enjoying preparing food. Now, I do both.
Yeah.
But with filmmaking, it takes quite some effort to find out whether making movies is as enjoyable as watching them.
Yeah.
Because everybody can pick up a camera, especially nowadays. It's democratized. Everybody has access to the tools and platforms to actually show what they made with the world.
Yeah.
But that was different when I was coming up, and you have to have opportunities and budgets, and those are not easy to come by, especially if you come to this point from a very indirect route. Not going to film school in the Netherlands is really, taking the long way round, because in order to get funding for a movie theater film, it's required that you go to film school.
Yeah.
Or at least have had films in movie theaters.
Yeah.
Which you don't get unless you have the funding from the film fund, which you don't get unless you went to film school. So, you get back to the same point again. And so for me, actually working at VPRO, so during my studies, was the first moment where I really started to appreciate the documentary genre in another way.
Yeah.
I was working on Metropolis. It still airs as part of the VPRO Human brand or network, or whatever you have to call this sort of, omroep. And this was a global network of filmmakers doing short segments on a weekly topic, from, I don't know, what kind of pets everybody has, to traffic, to all kinds of things related to sexuality or other kinds of social issues, both the lighthearted and the heavier subjects. And again, this was in the early 2000s. So having this was as a global collaboration was also a pretty sort of pushing the envelope kind of project, because broadband internet was sort of starting to get commonplace, but of course not in all the countries. So we would also get like videotapes with the Sahara dust still in there, coming from Afghanistan or God knows where. Not Sahara dust, but you get the point. And just being in touch with all these stories, all these people everywhere, all their lives and little worlds that you sort of dive into. That are real, that really spoke to me. And so I think it's around the same time I also got into the films of Werner Herzog, who we both actually have a bit of a relation with. And his way of approaching life really struck me. the distinction between what's fiction and what's reality sort of blurs with him, because he's just like, well, a good story is a good story, and if I have to show you something in a way that will sort of strike a chord, then that's going to be more, well, it's going to be better than just sticking with pure facts. Not to say that you have to twist facts and be, all about fake news. That's basically something that I really enjoyed as a concept, and started dabbling with shortly after I graduated from philosophy and left my job at the VPRO, and again sort of started learning on the job. Starting with short form. I did some small fiction things, and then got into documentary more and more, and actually had to start creating the opportunities myself in order to make my first big films.
Yeah. Do you think it's like you've been in an institution to study, you're also in institutions teaching people. Do you think it's necessary to have formal training to become a good filmmaker? Of course, there's a lot of very well-known ones that have no formal training, but also you talked a moment ago about that cycle of the funding and coming out of film school and all of those sort of things. Do you see it now? These days, everything's changing. Like you say, everyone can pick up a camera, everyone can be creative, share some imagery. Is it necessary? Do you think it plays a big part in standing out above the rest, that you've actually had some formal training? Or
I don't think it's a necessity at all, and I'm really not the first person to think that way. I mean, even Herzog would say that you can learn everything there is about filmmaking in 2 weeks.
Make a feature film on an iPad.
And it's been done. And nowadays with generative AI, you can even not touch a camera and already create compelling stories. But telling a proper story is an art that you need to master. But it's also something that's highly personal. And that just requires doing. And I think, if you've watched a lot of films, but also other kinds of storytelling, from reading books, knowing history or other art forms, everything that inspires, that can help you prompt your own story and aid your storytelling, is going to make you stand above the rest. Because it's not about the technology. It's not about the fancy camera. It's not about fancy camera moves either. I mean, sure, they can all help, but at the end, it will still suck if the story is no good.
So what is it about? I find this always interesting to ask everybody, whatever sort of career they're in, but what is it about filmmaking that drives your passion? Is it the process of it, the interesting story, the actual creation of something that you get to share with somebody else? Is it something that innately feeds you, brings the best out in you? Is it that you feel like when you're in this certain moment of filmmaking, you've taken the blue pill and now you're giving a whole lot of energy? What is it in your craft that really feeds your passion?
Well, it's a combination of these things and a few others. I mean, the idea of loving film as something you watch is distinct from making films, and experiencing the making of films and getting to the point that you can say, well, actually I've done this at a certain level that gets me to sort of understand how it really works and to determine whether it's something for me. Well, it took me 10 years to get to that point where I could actually say as such, right? And by that time, that's what you're doing. There's not much else you're doing. so you are basically growing into that position. And luckily, I did like and enjoy what I found there. I mean, I'm not so much on film sets. Don't do much with fiction, and I think that's a very different type of craft. That
Yeah.
even though I thought at one point that that would be the thing for me, I just love documentary and real life based stories because I get to submerge myself in worlds that are unknown to me.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about the travel, but it is about the meeting of minds and getting, you know, coming across other other people and other cultures and other customs and stories and problems and whatever to solve. And being a part of that is really enjoyable because you know I have an inquisitive nature. I love to learn. It's also my philosophical background, so I enjoy that doing that for me. And then of course you don't make a film for yourself, right? I mean, filmmaking takes months, but more often years for a film from start to finish to be there. So it better, you know, it gets in front of an audience, better
Yeah.
gets seen. And it's there that I actually started to realize with Monumental Crossroads that I really enjoy the part where there is interaction with an audience, where my film is not just something that's merely entertaining, but of value.
Yeah.
And so I sort of moved a bit into social issue documentaries because, you know, basically watch around you and things stick out and you go like, hey, why is this happening in a certain way? And with Monumental Crossroads, it was the taking down of the Confederate monuments in the south of the US,
Yeah.
in the city of New Orleans. And I just read about it in a newspaper and I wasn't really familiar with it. But the picture just struck me, you know, middle of the night, city workers wearing bulletproof vests trying to remove an equestrian statue. Hey, horses. That's sort of my first connection with horses there. And then protesters,
Yeah.
you know, on opposite sides with Southern Heritage Confederate flags and AR-15 rifles, and then
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter flags on the other side. And I was just looking at that picture, thinking, how do you go from there? You know, what's even if you remove that monument, then what society are you getting after?
Yeah.
And I've always loved New Orleans. I had been there a couple of years before, and I always longed to go back there and to meet my friends, to be there, but also to do something, to have a project there. So that instantly, when I read that message, I called up my friend and close collaborator, my director of photography, Ruben Hamelink. I said, we got to go to New Orleans. You know, what are you doing? And I think I spent a week or two researching before actually flying out there, with Ruben following shortly after. And that turned into a very sort of ad hoc,
Yeah.
multi-year production that could have easily gone wrong.
Yeah.
But it ended up very interesting.
Yeah.
As an opportunity for me. Initially, I thought to follow this story and to present it to a Dutch audience, like a bit of an exotic take on the whole Zwarte Piet debate that we have here, which is also, it's heritage, it's not hate. And now I really wanted to get into the story, see it from all angles.
Yeah.
And I thought this is going to be interesting back home.
Yeah.
And while actually filming, I learned so much about that specific American history and how it was all rooted in the history of slavery and racial segregation, and just understanding the history of the American South. And it was something so specific that I realized I need to make this film on its own, not as a comparison, not for a Dutch audience.
Yeah.
And so we finished actually going back 3 times to the States out of my own pocket to complete filming, and then working with blues musicians for the soundtrack. And 2 years later, it's finished. And only by accident do I realize that the actual audience isn't that Dutch audience that I had in mind, but actually a US academic audience.
Yeah.
I got it in front of a couple of notable history professors who have a specialization in the US Civil War and the history of the South. And they were like, this is wonderful because you're an outsider showing us who we are in a way that helps us sort of see this from a different angle.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it found its home.
Yeah.
And I managed to sell that film using, I'm sure we'll get to that at some point, some clever automated business tactics. I self-distributed that from the Netherlands to North America, basically, selling it to hundreds of universities where they are still using that film in classes that relate to the subject.
Yeah.
And I've been invited to about 30 of them to do lectures and Q&As and panel discussions.
Yeah.
So I flew back and forth a couple times in the past years to do that. And I really enjoyed that opportunity.
Yeah.
Because as a filmmaker, you might have a premiere at a film festival on a red carpet and a nice tux, and everybody's like, oh, bravo, and you get a couple of questions, and that's it. But and I've never really had that, so of course I'm a bit sour. But here, I had a sort of a captive audience of students who have to, deal with the subject as part of their curriculum, and teachers and professors who are all really invested in that matter, and to have meetings of minds, and you help. My curiosity that led to a film helps to shape the minds of these students who are dealing with the subject.
Yeah.
And I just felt really proud and so happy that this had led to that.
Yeah.
It's a very gratifying experience.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, this is really what I want. This is filmmaking with a purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that everything should have a purpose. I love entertaining shows and films.
Yeah.
But for me, this is a sort of a cross, like an intersection between following my own curiosity and sharing that with others who find that helpful. Because they are dealing with certain social issues, and this helps them in one way or another.
Yeah.
So more and more, my work is getting into that angle.
That's what I found super interesting in the beginning. Of course, both our good friends, Ernst Reisiger, who in turn made the music for Camp TRT. He gave me the call and the tip to contact you, and then of course I first went into the research part, and when I watched just the preview of Monumental Crossroads, and also actually like 2 days later, the documentary about Piet Hein was broadcast on Dutch television. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hang on, is that the same guy?
That's the same guy.
And then of course, I went into your researching you more, and then I saw that, it wasn't just a documentary. It wasn't just about storytelling, but that it had the possibility to make change, that people could really, you could solve a problem with creating a documentary to inform people. And then, of course, as I researched more, exactly what you've just told, it went into the education of people, the understanding of a society, of how we are and how we operate it. How do we get here and where do we go now? I mean, that for me was like, so much more depth. And then, of course, I always reflected back to my own work with horse training. And when you go so far in your craft to really take out the bits that feed you and interest you, and you're not just there for the money or there for the fame or making something fantastic that everyone gets you a pat on the back for, it gives so much more. What sort of impact do you think that films have on society or documentaries in informing? Of course, now we're talking about it also the possibility of solving problems, giving education awareness, so much so that it comes into an education system the filmmaker gets to go and actually give lectures and talks, and
Yeah.
or on the other side of it, sometimes we learn more from saying, what do you think would happen to society if it wasn't there? And of course, we've had a period in history where there wasn't film or television or phone or social media and those sorts of things. How do you think that documentary making has influenced, and what would possibly happen if we didn't have it?
That's a huge question.
Yeah.
I think we're becoming more and more connected through technology, and society is speeding up more and more. We are instantly aware of everything happening around the globe all the time, but the news cycle is very fast, and there's only so much empathy you have on a day to give, and a myriad of things to be concerned about that draw your attention. And I think documentary sits in the space where you actually take the time to, get enveloped in a certain part of the world, a certain arena where, some rules apply, some issue exists, and you witness what's going on there in a way that, gives you a bit of pause to reflect and connect to that story, and maybe apply it to your own life, or maybe you get inspired to certain action. And not all documentaries have that very practical effect, obviously.
Yeah.
And, for example, all the sometimes beautiful long form documentaries where characters are followed for years on end, sometimes I enjoy watching those kind of things where you see personal character development, and through that the story sort of gets told.
Yeah.
But I would really not like to make that.
Yeah.
Putting on my alarm clock every day to go sit in somebody's basement to see if something's gonna happen, and then maybe after three years we can call it into a film.
Yeah.
Right. I like to be involved with issues that are actually at play. That just like the New Orleans or actually the U.S. South film on the monuments being removed, that was happening right there. There was the air was ripe with it. We spent the summer of 2017 there, going all the way up to Charlottesville, where there was these massive riots. Everybody's seen that in the news in 2017. We were actually there, and that was for me very important to be part of, as to understand what was going on right there.
Yeah.
And I think the way of that kind of storytelling is it's not activistic per se, because I don't think I'm an activist, but I do concern myself with broader societal issues, and in a way that I want to offer my take on things that maybe inspire others to think about it differently or do something with it.
Yeah.
And that's a particular swath of filmmaking that's, well, in my case, I guess, more in the educational realm, slightly activistic maybe, but definitely not cinema. This is not the kind of work that gets selected for film festivals. Because, you got... you have a meaning with this. We have to take something from this.
You have to take time to
there's a
to watch
message.
it.
Well, that's you can take the message elsewhere, because that's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine too. It's not necessarily art, but I do think that that there's a lot of sort of fake distinctions being made and kept.
Yeah.
That I don't think are really fair in that sense. I think a good told story, a well told story with production value and sort of cinematic qualities can really transport the storytelling.
Yeah.
Even if that also serves a real life function to raise awareness for a certain issue that's at stake.
Yeah.
I don't think that that should all be sort of quick and dirty type of informational work. You know, these sort of segments can and do blend into each other. And if somebody wants to sort of call that, something with a message or activistic or how do you call it, like awareness films, and not cinema, then you can go ahead. But I want to make, I want to use cinema storytelling devices to the best of my abilities to create stories that I find important to tell, that have a connection to things that are going on in the world.
Yeah. So getting to our signature piece that we together collaborated on. So of course we were rookies in the long form content creation space. For me it was such an interesting process because of course I'm used to being in front of the camera in a training sense. I have a horse, and just like a clinic live situation, I'm working with the horse and I show a little bit the story of what's happening in the moment. And of course, we went ahead and we did this 5 days with these people from different places and different problems. And we sort of went into it. I went into it thinking the story is created by the days that we're about to do with these people. Like that will be the story. And then, of course, we had at the end of the 5 days 60 hours of footage, which is there's quite some possibilities in there. How did you see that when you first came to us? And of course, this is probably not the normal way in which you would come into a project, and now you have 60 hours of footage and you sort of see what maybe from some people's perspective as being an insane execution of filming a whole lot of stuff.
Well, this is a question I'd like to ask you too, but I'll give it my shot first. Because obviously, and this is not something I'm used to, you've spent a lot of time and resources with a whole team and contestants a whole week long actually filming, let alone all the planning and work that went before it, only to then arrive at a point thinking, okay, now how do we actually extract that story that's in here? Where normally, if you have to apply for funding and a spot on a TV network, that's the first thing they want to know. Like, what's the story? Write it out. Convince me. Just on paper, maybe storyboards, but you have to have your film sort of done even before you start filming. And that's true as much for feature films, where you actually can control all of the elements. As for documentary, where I don't know what reality is going to look like in 3 years while I'm following this here person about this subject.
Yeah.
But you can strategize, well, it could be interesting if the person goes this way or that way, and we can sort of, do this and that with it. And sort of having a plan on what the actual story ends up being, for who and what length and everything. That's the first part.
Yeah.
In virtually all projects that I've come across in the film and TV space, and so you did an incredible job. You're right, because the story does follow out of those 5 days, but as those progress and you end up with 60 hours of footage, you got this hefty amount of recordings. And like, who kept track? Where is the story at? What parts do we actually need for what episode, and what length, and how many will there even be, right?
Yeah.
So when we got introduced, I was told that you were looking for an editor, And so when I arrived and got a bit of the introduction to the project, I'm thinking, you don't need an editor. You need somebody to help you actually find that story as a sort of a detective almost in this huge amount of data. Because you got to realize that like a documentary film of an hour and a half typically has 24 hours of footage. You did almost triple. All right. And you weren't sure yet as to how long the eventual series was or
Episodes, how many, how long.
Exactly. So like, I can't just start editing here. I got a lot of questions and I think I'm not the only one. So, how was that for you? I mean, what did you think was gonna happen? What was your hope when you reached out there?
Yeah, well, of course, we just went in totally naively. And of course, because we have filmed live events and we make the training videos and, making informational content, maybe sometimes a little bit of storytelling or a testimonial video or, it's all short stuff. I mean, a live event, you do pick the highlights of what happened in that event, on which horse and those sorts of things. So you just go in with the experience that you have, So you think, because you don't know anything outside of that, you think that that's it.
Yeah.
And so we thought, great. If we have 5 days and we have people from different places and different disciplines and different levels of experience, and we bring them here in an isolated, really concentrated format that they can really focus, of course, it's also just a blink of an introduction to,
Of course.
helping them to get better and more skilled up. But I also wanted to be able to share some of the outside influences that have helped me in my life outside of the horse world and let them experience that, and to see that people can improve in all areas and that working with their horse is the source of life, being able to have self-reflection and self-improvement. And this was sort of just going to be filmed, and then we're going to have everything that we need, that we want to include, and then we'll just have to pluck that out. And then, of course, we needed somebody that was good at that. And then actually our first time we spoke, when you started to ask the types of questions, I was thinking, he needs to know quite a bit more. Of course, he doesn't know anything about what happened on the day. What are we looking at? What do you do? What is, these people here for? What's the horse? How many people? How many horses? And so in the beginning, it was like a bit of it was a big wake-up call. But for me, it just got me really interested in, this is going to be like real filmmaking. This is going to be like a new process in learning how to do this. And I had also this excitement of, this is such an intense, new, detailed process from somebody with a hell of a lot of experience that we already felt. I was so thankful to Ernst to be able to have the connection and the friendship with him and having to work with him, and that he was able to get me, or to get us, in contact with somebody from that field that we probably would never have had before. And so that gave me like, we're here with the real deal now. We're going to make something really, that I knew then that all the work we did something was going to come from it, and something really good, that it could actually be better than what I had hoped. And then when we went through, we had the meeting here, right here, and we start writing down, coming up with the key words. I mean, it gave so much clarity about actually what we did, and so much clarity on the vision of what we wanted to tell and what we wanted to share and from what angle. So that was like such a solid way just to get clarity yourself on what you've done and what you're trying to produce. And then also the character profiles. Of course, I was only thinking about the rider, but then we made character profiles for the horses. And that sort of got its own legs and said, well, these are the most interesting. This is actually what that rider and horse experienced. This was the description of their journey. And that just was such good tools in really drawing out what went on and what was the most interesting thing. Because, of course, in a process of plucking that story out, you need some kind of guideline, something to grab hold of, something to bring you through that, because otherwise, where do you even start with 60 hours?
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
And you have a lot of different people on the team. You need to find alignment together. What is it that we're doing? And unless you really articulate it, there can be all kinds of different interpretations that you stay unaware of because you haven't done that sort of mental exercise.
yeah,
And so, when I hear other filmmakers who work on commissioned projects say that they have like 10 rounds of revisions, I'm thinking, you started at the wrong end, because, you want to have that clarity before you do your work,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
And that's not just, with editing, but it's actually, here I came in halfway in the production, so when the post was starting. But this is what you want from the get-go, and whether that's an original film or a commissioned project, finding the story, that's something that is not about the tools, not about the flashy video. That's about understanding story.
yeah,
And there's a method to that madness.
Yeah.
And it's something that I'm very much a proponent of getting in place as soon as possible, because then every step along the way can be intentional. We all know what we're doing and why we're doing it.
yeah,
And it saves a whole lot of hassle.
Yeah.
And we can make sure that every detail counts.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I've learned that because I've never operated that in any aspect ever in my life. So it's a new skill. But what was also difficult for me was the process of choosing, because each individual session, which of course we have the one-on-one sessions of each individual day on the online, that's what I'm used to presenting if I do a clinic. And I'm in the training mindset of, okay, this is a process that is perfect for the horse to be able to understand and learn systematically in the best way possible to get the right pieces of information that he needs for this session. This is the session. And I always want to first be able to provide that for the horse, but then also for the people, that they view that they can follow this thread of don't do that before this. And the horse has to get this reward and this release and understand that before you go to the next step. And of course, you can't put full training sessions of 5 people in one episode. And then, so that for me in the beginning was kind of, okay, what is the story that comes out of it? And actually being able to sort of say, okay, we're making now this storytelling part, the important parts of that person's journey. Not everything needs to be shown in each aspect of the session, how they're going with their horse. But what then became inspiring was when I saw the first drafts and I started to feel already the sort of power in each individual story. It gave me a different perspective of that person and that horse's journey, where I was still, even then, in the training aspect of, okay, what skills did the horse have? What skills does the person have? What don't they have? What are they yet to learn? And I was trying to show that it was more about this self-knowledge, self-awareness, and this growth within ourselves. It wasn't about the detail, but actually I was still there. But in the making of it and seeing how that story evolved, that made me even more aware of what the important factors were. And especially when we started to get the reactions of what other people were seeing, it was like, or even before we had launched it, sharing the ideas between us, and then seeing, different aspects that were popping out to people that when you work in a group, it's not maybe obvious to you in the beginning. Then you're like, oh yeah, I didn't even notice that. Yeah, that's also an interesting point.
Yeah.
And how was that for you in the beginning when you came in, all the hours of footage, you get a bit the story from me. You also have to learn who I am, what I'm about, what is my intent with these people, what am I actually trying to do, what is TRT,
A horse.
what is horse learning theory, what is a horse.
I mean, I come to this environment blank, right? And as with many documentary projects, I have to sort of really dive into, what is this world about? And it's something I really enjoy doing. And that's, that can be monuments in the south of the US. It can be some kind of a corporate environment where I use storytelling for achieving business results or team building or whatever kind of like a corporate story, but also like here, right? This is the only time I've been on a horse. I think it was 8 years old on holiday in some kind of pony camp, and the pony just didn't care for the fact that I was on his back. He just continued eating grass, and they took a photo, and I was off again. And that's the only experience I had. So there's all.
The next one was a 4-year-old stallion doing perfect groundwork with extreme symmetry in the TRT arena.
Guided by Mr. TRT himself, obviously. Yeah, and no, there was actually it was a beautiful moment, honestly, because when we first met and you showed me around also the stables, I'm thinking, okay, so here's an animal the size of a small car. I have no idea how to interact with it, so I'm gonna go, around it. That's my natural reaction. And from going there through Camp TRT, understanding a whole lot about the sort of approach, and then you actually giving me the opportunity to handle or work with one of your horses. I was like, this is amazing. This is it lingered for the entire day. That feeling was like a connection you make. And a stallion, no less. So there's a whole lot to learn, right? And for me, I immediately understood the importance of the project. And in that sense, I think it really aligns with a lot of my other work that have sort of social issues at the front.
Yeah.
Because it's not always apparent, but you can say, well, this is about how to be more effective in your, relation with your horse. But that's fine on an individual level. But if you zoom out and you look at the whole sport and, common practices and where you are positioned and, trying to be a force for good, basically, coming with new ideas that will be better for the horses and also, the interaction with the riders. I'm thinking, oh, well, that's something I've never even thought about. But, listening to this, I can see the relevance of that. And, I love to be a part of that and to make sure that we hit all of these points that we think are important in our storytelling.
Yeah.
And so, it's also about audience. Who are we making this for? Because if this is for your current group of TRT members, they have a lot of knowledge already that you can build on. So you might not need the whole introduction of a method, for example.
Yeah.
If you want this to be interesting also from an entertainment point of view, then, we need to put that in and have more of a leading up to, also introducing the characters and make it more about their journeys. So there were a lot of questions connected there that, for me, they just fire off in my head. But I also need those, go over them with all of you
Yeah.
as a team to determine like how can we get the most effective storytelling out of this 60 hours and
Yeah.
this ambition.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at the process of the story finding, so there's the keywords, there's the character briefs, and from that came the storyboards, basically, or the development through the episodes. The comments on YouTube actually mirror the keywords. People are saying it's transformational. It's empowering to see them do this. It's authentic to see everybody be vulnerable and how there's a sense of community going. It's all the stuff we put in there.
Yeah.
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 And of course, you already put it in there because it's your method, it's your approach, it's you, it's your team that selected these writers and offered all this. But you could have made 1,000 different edits and decisions and come up with something completely different.
Yeah. And in the beginning, I was thinking there was only one.
No, I mean, you could also approach it as like, will they succeed? 5 days, time is ticking, and they have to. It's all or nothing, like a game show.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You could have made it into something like that, being all on the exciting details. Will they succeed?
Yeah.
And of course, storytelling, you need conflict to have progress.
Yeah.
There's a desire to do something, and there's obstacles in the way that need to be overcome.
Yeah.
And that's the basic principle of every story.
Yeah.
Because otherwise nothing happens.
Yeah.
And if you don't overcome those obstacles, well, that's also stories, but then you get into Russian literature about how nothing happened and everybody's depressed and whatever. But for the most part, we want to root for people or a cause or an objective to actually work out.
Yeah.
And we all know the unspoken contract that goes with ups and downs. And, it's, when all's nearly lost, then the saving moment will be there.
Yeah.
And I think, we put that really in the episodes by really focusing on the different characters and their developments. And like, if we have 5 episodes, how can we structure those individual journeys over those 5 episodes so that each of them have an interesting character arc and the development.
Yeah.
And I think because we paused, and actually I think you were hoping from the first meeting to have a first edit in a few weeks after, and we took 2 months before even starting editing just to get the clarity on this. I think that shows how that works.
What was also and of course when things really come together and work, I mean, there's so many elements I can see now from your experience, but also your background, your interest in philosophy and the interest in culture and social issues, and that when I told you the story and you said, yeah, I get the vision, I was like, really? Yeah, really? Like, I don't know how many times I've sold that story to how many people, and no, everybody's lost. Right? And then also the sort of way talking about coming in and not knowing anything, and then in a short time you were talking about terminology, like TRT terminology, like talking about tools, and that moment where Martina came in and she had that tension release moment, and you were doing the clock shape, and then and the behind and across with the front legs, and I was like, what the hell? Did you just go and watch the whole online training and now you know? Do you have a system for that, or is that something that comes natural for you? Because of course you understood actually what they were doing and why they were doing it. And even if I, in the beginning, have somebody that's very highly experienced, they may have even, didn't matter what discipline, they've ridden and had medals at the Olympic Games. And I tell them that they're about to teach their horse about a self-management system, that the horse can be in control of its own physical and mental soundness. And they first have to have the awareness of self before, and you have to make that connection before you can go into the actual, but you already understood that process of what I was trying to guide the people to do that also didn't yet know what they were doing. How is that possible, actually?
How did you do that? Well, I think two things. There's you and your explanations, and even though not everybody might pick up at the same rate, I think you have a very clear way about you of explaining your methodology and the thought process, and that spoke to me. So I am very quick to sort of adopt this kind of thing, and then keep my eyes open for the proof. Like, do I see this actually happening?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, that's I recognize it. There it is, right? And the other part is that I think that's my job.
Yeah.
When I'm developing my own films, or when I'm working with somebody on their own project in whatever space, it's the biggest thing that I can bring is the ability to really understand what it is that they want to tell.
Yeah.
And I cannot do a good job for you to help craft this entire series if I don't understand what it's about into the finest details.
And does the power come through asking questions or listening to an explanation and seeing a visual to match? Or what is I'm trying to draw out a formula so that more students can understand as fast as you did.
Well, I think you have to have a bit also of the tendencies, like listening and being sharp in the type of questions that you ask.
Yeah.
Which, of course, I think listening is one of the most underrated things that we have, or tools that we have at our disposal, because there's so much you can just pick up from, shutting up and listening to what somebody's saying.
Yeah.
And paired with...
and it's actually a big part of your work in the beginning, to come in and not know and have to ask, to find out, to get the information, to get the right information, and to be able to formulate that into an interesting...
Well, honestly, I think that's why it really suits me well, because I've always have had a bit of the sort of outsider position. Growing up in school, I was big for my age, but I wasn't really sort of part of the sort of the cool kids gang. But I didn't pick on me either, because I was the strongest in the class. So I was always sort of just finding my own way. I was interacting with everybody, but I never really belonged somewhere squarely and fairly, and not with the rest. So, and that sort of always stuck with me, and it became actually a strength.
Yeah,
because I feel perfectly at ease with you, as I am with other clients, or when I'm filming in Cuba. You have to sort of understand what's the environment I'm in.
Yeah.
And there's always ways you can relate to that, and sort of keep your eyes a bit open as to how things work here. And, where what you don't know, you ask.
Yeah, yeah.
And I find that a very untroubled, easy way of moving through life.
Yeah.
Just, stick with what you know, and don't pretend to be more than that.
Yeah.
And where you don't know, just ask.
Yeah, it's good advice. And I think that's one of the major things, especially when I work with professional writers that have a sort of an image, success, to ask the question they don't know is difficult.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of, well, this is my identity, this is where I've come to, and just to be able to say, well, yeah, actually, I don't know that, and to be inquisitive and to learn the thing that could probably give you much relief from the struggles you're having.
Exactly. Yeah, because that's the sorry element of it, right? That people are holding themselves back.
Yeah.
Because if you actually could find a way to get across that, then you would be able to open up for help and learn new things
Yeah.
instead of pretending that that this is not an issue or you don't need help, or
Yeah.
it's a sensitivity issue that's holding you back.
Yeah.
I think in my case, going bankrupt at 20 and sort of realizing, oh wait, so I had this sort of successful business, but it wasn't really all that much, and maybe I was even more, a ball on a stormy ocean being swept onto all sides, and it wasn't really all my intentional doing.
Yeah.
That I had 6 years of bankruptcy and schuldsanering to chew on that, and I guess that really did help me position in this way. Like,
Yeah.
you know what? It's fine with this is my path. It goes with ups and downs, and
Yeah.
I don't have to pretend, that everything is all right, or that I'm this sort of a master or something where I'm not.
Yeah.
Because failing that publicly, with newspapers full of this promising young man is now actually bankrupt.
Yeah.
That sort of gets you down on both feet again as well.
Yeah. And coming out of the TRT now, it had been launched. Of course, we still have to launch the last episode, which many people are hanging on that.
Cliffhanger.
The cliffhanger. What was your expectation before putting it out? We had also a lot of the time the discussions between TRT people, horse people, and non-horse people. And we actually had some little sort of birdies tell us along the way that non-horse people were also really enjoying it. So in contrast, your expectation, and then from your perspective, when it was launched, how did that change? Was it different? And sort of, you've worked on a lot of really big projects and successful projects, working with some rookies on
well,
a series. Is it what you expected?
Yeah, I think it's better than what I expected in terms of, not being involved in the actual production, but saying, let me step in halfway and be part of this to the end. You have to, all of the decision making in what's there has already been made. So that's you're at a disadvantage there.
Yeah.
And I quickly realized that there was a lot of good stuff in there because, even though you didn't have the experience beforehand, you did a lot of things right, coming from different experiences and, good intuition. But much like I did Monumental Crossroads in 2017 without sort of fully understanding what would go into this project, I made choices there that I would now make very much differently. And that would also lead to a different film, I'm sure, even though it ended up okay. And so what's the mileage may vary. Where does this get us in this case with TRT and our chosen approach? That remains to be seen because it's such a huge project. It's months of work with a team, right? Because I helped you guys with story consulting in the first phase, and then when we were actually clear on what is it that we want to tell, it actually still had to happen.
Yeah.
For which we had to take an editor on board, Liana Kotte, very good film editor in Munich. That was 3 months of full-time work for her.
Yeah.
Then came audio post-production, Bob Kommer, Sound Studios, my DP, Ruben Hamelink, who's also a fine grader, took care of that. So, and then there's, of course, Ernst Reiziger, who composed, especially for the series, some beautiful music. So, and me, that's 5 working for months, basically, to get the show done. And a lot of things can happen in that time.
Yeah.
And we were, of course, together with you as the team, very much aligned on what we wanted to come of it, and to see it actually coming into being, and with all the detail that went into it. I mean, the sort of polishing that Ruben does in the grading. It's taking care of, like, oh wait, let me crop this frame a little bit because there's a little thingy on the side. It's a bit distracting. Watching it over and over while we're building from rough cut to fine cut to final cut. Audio mixes, this is not good. Another audio mix grading, and then all to the final delivery. It's a very challenging task, and that times 6 plus all the hours of training material, and it's about 30 hours, I guess.
Yeah.
Make it into a really big project.
Yeah.
And so anybody who would say I already know what it's going to look like exactly, that I wouldn't trust that, because we have the intention, we have a fair estimate on where we will end up, but we still have to actually do the work for months, and that turned out beautifully. I'm really happy with the result, and it's always, of course, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So getting it out there and waiting for the viewers and the comments.
Yeah.
But honestly, I did expect that people would enjoy it, and on those different levels. From it being an entertaining show, also for non-horse people, myself included. Up to all the professionals and the people who are committed to your method, because we all put it in there, right? So it would actually be surprising if they didn't respond like that, because then we would have sort of lost our intention along the way.
Yeah. Do you think it was a good idea because of course there's always the option with senders and letting somebody else broadcast it, but to make it free for the people, that everybody can watch it on YouTube, the most watched platform in the world, probably.
Well, it's a very low threshold. There's a little in the way of actually getting that content to be able to watch the series.
Yeah.
So I think that's a smart move, and also connected to your ambition to spread the method as broadly as you can in the horse community. It means that you have to get people acquainted, as broadly as possible. And I think this is a very easy way in. I saw comments of people saying, I'm not a horse person, but I'm enjoying this terrific or tremendously. And I just want to know what's going on and how they are, developing with their horses.
Yeah.
It's it's interesting to watch. It's also the way you interact with people, the sort of calmness in your voice, sort of the tranquility. Some people spoke about, like, oh, I can listen to this guy for hours. Well, I have in edits and whatever, and I
prefer not to these days.
No, I can attest to it, right? So it's I think it turned out well, and now it's available for everybody to enjoy. So that's I think a very good thing.
Yeah, and from all the hours of listening to me and watching methods over and over, are there aspects? What are some of the things you would say if someone was to come to you now in a bar and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting into horses. Do you know something about that?" Would there be some things that you're like, yes, well, actually.
Well, I know somebody to refer them to now, and or a methodology at the very least. Yeah, no, I wouldn't presume that I'm anywhere near a horse master myself.
But some of the important key points of working with horses, if you were, or with your experience of following the camp and seeing the people, and are there some threads in there where you're like, if you want to work with horses, that's pretty important?
Well, I think just coming, taking cues from the series, I think it's very beautiful to see how somebody like Esther, for example, really made a mind shift in, why am I sort of trying to force this idea that other people have on how I should interact with my horses, while I can do it on my own way and actually have that be an enjoyable thing that I share with them. And especially in the episode still coming up, I think you see that in a beautiful way what that ends up being,
Yeah.
right? And before getting into TRT, I would assume that people who are into horses are into it because they want to ride horses, and all the rest is just in function of the riding. So you have to take care of because otherwise you can't ride your horse if it's crapped out on you, right?
Yeah.
And that actually the relationship and taking care of your horse and that being a conversational approach where you don't sort of force whatever you want at any given moment on a horse. It's actually very, it makes sense, right? Like, yeah, you know what, if I it's 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 the old categorical imperative by Kant, or the Christian "Thou shalt not do to others what you." I don't know how it ends, but
it's in every biblical religious scripture
exactly.
of the
Treat
world.
others like you want to be treated yourself, right?
Yeah.
And why would that stop at humans and not other sentient beings, especially not the ones that you're gonna have a long-lasting relationship with?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, but it's so clearly not fully the case.
Yeah.
That that's what you accept what that world looks like.
Yeah.
But it can be different.
Yeah.
Right. And that it seems to start with well, I wouldn't even call it these small changes of behavior because they are huge, really. But one person at a time. In that sense, it's a small step.
Yeah.
And I know nothing about the rest of the methodology. I mean, you took me into the arena once and told me exactly what to do, and I'm like, oh yeah, look at that, things are happening. But I don't speak horse, right? Yeah. And so for me to understand exactly the takeaways in that arena are a bit limited, obviously. But seeing that, you can actually, on a pretty advanced level, sort of teach a horse in such a way that you're not telling him what to do in every given situation, but giving him tools to control himself. I think, of course, that's square and center in the whole approach. That's very apparent. You see it happen with everybody, and quick changes. And like, wow, that's special. And the fact that it is special shows how much is wrong with our general approach to animals, I think. And so when somebody would come up saying, I want to get into horses, then those would be definitely the first things to address.
Okay, we'll save that. It's my new script and slogan for the online training. So are you ready for the new TRT full-length feature film in Hollywood?
Bring it on. Yeah. I'm all excited. It's been a very pleasant and exciting and journey, and I learned a lot myself. And
us too.
I think it's just been online for a little bit, but this is going to be an evergreen in your catalog. I'm sure for years to come, people can watch and rewatch this, because this is not something like this is yesteryear's ideas. This is actually, it's a good story. It's well told. 5 people, and you as the trainer, guiding them on a different path.
Yeah.
And I think there's many more things you can do in that area.
Yeah.
In whether that's a feature film or a series with a slightly different concept, at least different contestants.
Yeah.
There's tons of things that
Yeah.
that you can do, and I would love to be a part of.
Yeah. And of course, my thought of one story turned into many with just this series. So you can imagine the amount of stories that are going through my head now of what the
I have a
possibilities are.
vague idea.
No, but I want to thank you, Tim, of course, for your contribution, for your professionalism, your experience, your patience with dealing and teaching us, guiding us through this project. Yeah, we, of course, benefiting greatly just from the experience of working with you. And yeah, actually, without your help, we were not ever able to produce what we've produced. So from my team here and for everybody that's going to watch it, thank you very much. Thank
Most
you
welcome.
also for being here today, giving your time and speaking about it. And for sure, I look forward to doing more things together.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that. Thank you too. And let's get to it.
So guys, if you want to see or want to know more of Tim's work, frontalfilm.com is where you can find him or contact Tim directly himself. Tim Vandenhoff.nl. Stay good to your horses. We'll see you next time.